KCAA.com.
KCAA.
Do you believe in a God that satisfies? Do you believe in a God that opens eyes? Do you believe in a God that tells you lies? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that brings you down? Do you believe in a God that wears the ground? Do you believe in a God that makes you bow? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that satisfies? Do you believe in a God that opens eyes? Do you believe in a God that tells you lies? Or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that brings you down? Do you believe in a God that wears the ground? Do you believe in a God that makes you bow? Or do you believe in me?
It's Beyond Common Sense. It's Lanny Sense with Lanny Swerdlow, KCAA's resident gay, woke, liberal, pot-smoking, race-mixing, tree-hugging, left-handed, science-affirming, Jewish, humanist, atheist, a white evangelical Christian nationalist, worst nightmare.
Hey, welcome to tonight's show. I'm Lanny Swerdlow, the host of this marvelous show, and we are so glad you are taking the time to join us tonight. We've got a great show featuring Gregory Franklin, author of the new book, Searching for St. Germain, the true story of a gay Catholic orphan. But before we got that, I want to talk to you a little bit about things that maybe gives you hope that things are going to get better. You know, when I first moved to the Coachella Valley back in 2000, there was nothing going on there in regards to cannabis reform. And so I used to make the trip out to Orange County in Anaheim, where I would go to the Orange County Hemp Council. They had snagged a $250,000 grant from the Playboy Foundation, and every year they use some of that money to secure a table at the Orange County Fair. And they needed volunteers, so I and Victor came out to the Orange County Fair to help them staff it. And they would have this table out there, there's literature, and people would come up and talk to us. And I remember this one time, this one guy came up there and he kind of looked around the table at different literature, and then he looked up at me and says, "What is it that you really want? What do you really want?" And I paused a moment, and I thought, well, I'll tell you what I really want. I want to come down to the Orange County Fair, and I want to go to that building that houses all the agricultural products. That's what I want to do. And I walk in there, and I want to see, along with the corn and the Brussels sprouts and the berries and the pumpkins and all that kind of stuff, I want to see the cannabis section where they are giving blue ribbons for the best cannabis. And what I really, really, really want is I want to be a judge judging all that wonderful, wonderful cannabis. Well, that never came to be at the Orange County Fair, but you know what? It's come to be true at the Los Angeles County Fair. That's right. For the first time in the 170-year history of the California State Fair, which is scheduled to open on July 12th in Sacramento, visitors will be able to do something they have never been able to do there before, at least legally. And that is, they will be able to purchase and consume cannabis on site at the California State Fair. Embark, the fair's partner on the project, will host a dispensary and a 30,000 square foot outdoor consumption lounge space at Cal Expo that will allow fairgoers who are 21 and over to buy and try award-winning cannabis. This year's California State Fair, which runs from July 12th through 28th, daily hours for the climate-controlled dispensary and lounge award winners, and additional information will be posted to the 2024 California State Cannabis Awards website at CalStateFairCannabisAwards.com. That's CalStateFairCannabisAwards.com as soon as they are available. Now, you'll only be able to consume cannabis products purchased on site, so don't bring your own. The lounge will provide rolling papers and expects to have an assortment of other smoking paraphernalia available to use. So there you go. For the first time ever, you can buy and use cannabis on site at the California State Fair. Let me assure you that after imbibing and enjoying at the Cannabis Lounge there, the rest of the State Fair will seem better than it has ever seemed before. Oh, this is great. Yes, we are making progress. If somebody told me, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that you'll be able to buy and consume cannabis at the California State Fair, I would have wondered what they had been drinking. but it's reality. Sacramento was a long way from where I live down here in near the Palm Springs area, but it might be worth the drive. I know we will really make it though when they have a cannabis lounge at the Riverside State Fair in Indio. That will be close to us. And you know what? Maybe I'll make the suggestion. I'll contact the Riverside Board of Supervisors and the state and the county fair board and say, hey, they're doing this in Sacramento. Maybe we should do it at Riverside. It'd be a new way to get more people to the fair. And they're always looking for that. Well, hey, today we have a marvelous show to you. I mentioned that our guest is Gregory Franklin. He's the author of a new book entitled Searching for Saint Germain. The true story of a gay Catholic orphan. Searching for Saint Germain is an engaging tale of woe, yet it's a story of survival and resilience against what seemed like insurmountable odds. As a young boy, Gregory was turned over to Catholic social services. Thus began a harrowing journey, rife with various kinds of abuse, bullying, condemnation, and rejection, but it eventually led to self-realization and ultimately self-sacrifice. Not self-sacrifice, excuse me, self-acceptance, self-sacrifice. Oh my gosh, we haven't gotten there yet. Gregory, welcome to the show. It is such a pleasure to have you on Lanny Sense.
Thanks for having me, Lanny. It's been quite a while since we've been able to sit down and chat for a while, so this is going to be fun.
Yes, I don't get up to Portland all that often, and you never get down to Palm Springs. So
I don't travel. I just don't.
Well, you'll have to come down to Palm Springs sometime. I will be coming. I hope to come up to Portland sometime this year, so maybe we will be able to get together. Anyway, Gregory and I date back a long time in Portland, where I used to run nightclubs like Metropolis and City Nightclub, and I used to do TV shows. Of course, the TV shows were always very, shall we say, eyebrow-raising, because I ran 4 TV shows that I produced for Portland Cable Access, of which Gregory was a director and producer and did a lot of work for Portland Cable Access. And the TV shows I did, one was called Night Scene, which was kind of a gay take on the Tonight Show, in which we would have entertainers and guest speakers and so forth and so on. Then we had another show called Outrageous, which was the performances that used to be put on by the young people coming to my club. These were drag shows and stuff being put on by kids who are 16, 17, 18, 19. Talk about that, opening eyes. And then I put on a show called Cannabis Common Sense, which was a show about legalizing cannabis. And even more eye-opening, I had a show called Bunk Busters, which is a show to promote atheism and science belief and so forth and so on. And so here I was doing all these shows. So it was kind of controversial, but Gregory was always right there helping out. In fact, he became the director of both Night Scene and Outrageous. So we done a lot together.
Lanny, I'm really proud of the video that we did back then. We did this. So I was involved for a decade, 10 years or so, and this was like 20, 25 years ago. And I think we did some cool stuff.
Oh, listen, the stuff that we did, especially on the Night Scene show with the interviewing the community members, it's history. It's history, and it's all recorded live and all recorded on tape. And I'm sure people do use it when they want to do history of the gay community in Portland. And, of course, a lot of the young people who used to perform on the shows just love seeing the old Outrageous shows and seeing them when they were 16, 17, 18 performing on the stage. And now they're in their 30s and 40s and older, and it's really interesting. I still stay in touch with them. They have a website called the Original City Nightclub, and I hear it all the time from them that the best time of their lives was the time they spent at that nightclub with their friends and with us, and they're coming out, and the self-acceptance and for the first time in their lives feeling that not only was it okay that they were gay, they were glad they were gay, and they were so proud and happy about the times they had there. So anyway, but that's it. Growing up gay is a difficult experience. And it's difficult now, but, it was even more difficult when I was growing up and when you were growing up. And you wrote about your childhood in this wonderful new book called Saint Germain, Searching for Saint Germain. Where did you come up with that title, Searching for Saint Germain?
Well, this happened way after I had finished writing the book, and I was looking for a title, and I came across I looked up what is the patron saint of abandoned and abused children, and it's Saint Germain. Saint Germain, by the way, was a woman, and she was, I think, somehow deformed from birth or something like that, and had sort of a Cinderella story. And when I read about her, I was saying, that's just like my story. And I think it's a great title because it sort of invokes a little curiosity. What's going on there? What's the story? And of course, the story is mine. It's a memoir, and I initially started writing the book as a way of sort of like self-therapy. I wanted to figure out, why I'm kind of screwed up the way I am. And, it's not bad. I mean, I've worked through most of it by now. But anyway, about halfway through writing these little stories that I remembered, I went, this is pretty interesting stuff. This would make a good book. So I just began in earnest writing it. And that part from there until when I published it, that was probably a period of about 3 years. I was just going back over things, tried to fit it in chronological order. And it's basically a succession of stories that follows me through like a bunch of different changes. Now, like you said, I was an orphan, and then I got adopted into this family called the Schroeders, and they split up by the time, I arrived on the scene when I was about 2. And this is right around the time that I'm starting to become conscious and starting to be able to remember stuff.
You remember stuff from when you were 2 years old?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I can't remember stuff from a day and a half ago, let alone when I was 2 years old, but that's remarkable. Go ahead, Gregory.
Yeah, very, very little, but, anyway, this family split up by the time I was like 5 or 6, so I was there for just a couple of years. And then both parents said, we don't want these kids. There was me and another kid who they had adopted separately, who was my brother, Mike. And both parents had remarried and they didn't want any more kids. Their new families already had kids, so they turned us loose. And so I became a ward of the court of St. Clair County, who assigned me to Catholic Social Services, and that's who basically ran stuff from there. And I moved just about every year since then until I went into high school. And so there's just like a bunch of different stories, and you can follow this path, seeing where I'm able to remember more and more stuff as time goes on. And I like how the arc of the story places the bad, really ugly parts. I mean, there's some serious abuse in there with one of the foster families that I was in. And that's kind of in the middle of the book, and you can see the arc where things start getting better for me as I get into high school and all that kind of stuff. The main thing is it's a good story, even if it wasn't true, it's still a good story.
Well, you write a gay Catholic orphan. So
yeah.
When did you come to the realization that you were gay or you were attracted to other boys or men or whatever?
It wasn't until long after this. I mean, I was Catholic, and when I was in that age, when I was in school, Catholicism was pretty much my parents, my family, so I was very much into it. And even though I couldn't understand some of the stuff, like confession, confession is kind of a weird thing, but we were required to do that because the story is, the rule is that you can't receive communion if there's a sin on your soul. So you have to go to confession before Sunday Mass so that you can take communion. Now, communion wasn't optional when I was coming up. We had to do it, so I had to go in and confess things. Now here I am, a little kid, 9, 10 years old, something like that, and I don't know what to say in a confessional about what, how much trouble can a 10-year-old get into. And it always puzzled me, that I would just make up sins, and the priest would give me, say, like, say 3 Hail Marys and stuff like that.
Let's step back. You would make things up?
I would make sins up so that I would have something to say in confession.
So you had nothing. So you would make up
Well,
stories.
Because I had to, Lanny. None of this makes sense. Okay, things
Of
making
course not. It's
sense
religion.
purely optional.
Well,
You know that. I mean, I learned how comical Catholicism is from working on Bunkbusters, for crying out loud.
right. So when you were 9 and 10, and what kind of things would you make up?
I would make up lying to the nuns or getting in a fight or something like that. And,
So you were actually raised in a Catholic institution?
yeah, well, when I wasn't in a foster home, so I mean, it was just like I went to three military academies
Oh.
growing up, 3 different ones. I mean, I was moved like just about every year until I was 13. So I mean, I would be in a whole new environment where there was nothing that I knew yesterday. So it was like a whole new thing, you know. And I was pretty traumatized. I really was. As a kid, I was messed up. I mean, an argument could be made that I'm still messed up, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, so you were 9 and 10, and you were making up stories to the priest in order to do it that you thought you had to do to have communion. What would
Yeah,
the priest?
okay.
What would the priest tell you to do?
The priest would, it was always, you know, like say X amount of Hail Marys or Our Fathers or whatever. And the thing that I always thought was kind of quirky about that is he would let me out of the confessional, and I would be expected to do this penance. It's called penance. And I was thinking to myself, who's checking? Is there some sort of protocol to find out whether I actually do this penance or not? So, I mean, the confessional became, you know, this whole manufactured thing that I just did because I was told that I had to.
Interesting. So
That's the kind of thing about Catholicism. Catholicism, like I said, it's not required to make sense. It is what it is.
Well,
And, you know, things making sense is purely optional.
if we required religion to make sense, there wouldn't be very many religions around, would there?
There you go.
You know,
you go.
You just.
I mean, when you think about it, Lanny, I mean, what's going on right now is you got evangelical Christians following Donald Trump, okay? They think that this now convicted criminal who has been a mob boss for the entirety of his adult life is who they are looking to save them.
And yeah, it's ironic to say the least, because if there's anybody that supposedly isn't following Christian morality, it's got to be him. 3 times married, sexually, you know, going off with porn stars and having sex with other women while he's married and all this kind of stuff. But they seem to be okay with that. Maybe
That's.
Maybe
that makes no sense to me at all.
Well, no, maybe he's a fantasy to them. That's what they really want in their lives, and so they're leading secret lives.
Strong ruler, somebody to take charge and fix it all for them.
So you say a gay Catholic orphan. Now, how does the book revolve around that you are a gay and you're a Catholic and you are orphan?
Okay, that's basically what it's about. I mean, it's my coming of age story. From that environment. So even when I was in foster homes, they were Catholic foster homes. I had a case manager that kind of followed me through all this, and I got turned down by all of the foster families that I was in, and mostly it was because I was gay and I was effeminate. I was very swishy when I was young. You know, I can't do that anymore. I mean, it used to be my resting pulse. But, you know, the last time that I did drag was 1990, and I tried my very best to bring out the feminine, you know, the girl Gregory, and it was just not working.
And I thought I knew you. This is the first time I've ever heard that you used to do drag.
Well, I only did it once.
Oh, just once.
It was for Coronation, and this was like 1990, and it was at, do you remember the Starry Night nightclub here in Portland?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I think it's called the Roseland now. Anyway, that's where the event was held. And I had my friend Victoria, who's a cosmetologist. do my hair and makeup and all that kind of, shaved for it. And I was really making an attempt to look like a woman. And I even have pictures. I'll send those to you one day. Anyway, at the Starry Night, there's a large hallway leading to the men's room, right? And down this long hallway, at the end of it is a full-length mirror. So I come around the corner, I want to go to the bathroom, and I see this full-length mirror, and I said, oh, here's my chance, right? So I'm just swishing as best as I could, and I got to the mirror, and I'm standing in front of it, and I said, Gregory, I will never do this to you again. There was no getting around the fact that I was a truck driver in a dress, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Well, now you said you when you were a young boy, you were very effeminate. Did that go through most of your childhood, teenage years, and everything?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I was effeminate in the way that you could clock me as being gay at probably 50 yards if you didn't know me.
So how did these foster families treat you?
Well, at first, it was part of the thing you got to understand about the foster families is these are farms in rural Michigan. Actually, when they used to be family farms, they'd have a family and they'd have like 40 acres and they'd be doing crops, and that's how they made their living, right? Now, when you're ward of the court, it's either the county or the state pays for your keep in these foster homes. And the foster family would also get free farm labor, okay? So they would get, I think at the time it was like $80 a month. And that's how a lot of kids in the system when I was coming up would be fostered. They would be fostered to a farm, and they would, the foster family would get like $80 a month for, food and all that kind of stuff. And they would get free farm labor in exchange for it. Out of the stuff that happened to me when I was a kid, I think I liked being on the farms the best because there was lots of space and there was lots of, animals and on almost every farm there's broken down tractors or sleds or, all kinds of stuff just laying around that's been forgotten. And that was just really interesting to me. I mean, some of the things that I really liked is the smells, the different animal smells. And I mean, when you're in a farm and those are the only smells that are there, they're really not that unpleasant, you know.
Well, what kind of chores did you do?
We had, I milked cows, I fed and bred ponies, and one of them was a dairy farm. And that was kind of a cool operation because we had these vacuum pump pipes running in the ceiling. So you just go to the cow with this little apparatus and you stick these tubes on their udders, and it just puts milk into this big bucket. And then we take this big bucket and put it in the separator, which separates the milk from the cream and all that kind of stuff. And then they would send it off to market. And
what age were you when you were doing all this?
This was, I'm thinking about the Macklem, so then I would have been 7, 8.
Oh, you were pretty young.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I remember hay baling. That was the thing that was, I mean, here we are. These bales of hay are about the same size and weight as I am, and I'm expected to haul these things around, and it was work. It was work.
So you had brothers and sisters.
Yeah, foster brothers and foster sisters.
And how did they treat you? I mean, you said you were a feminist, so you said they must have suspected you were gay, if they didn't talk to us. How did they treat you?
I don't think any of them were thinking about that. I don't recall that when I was in foster homes and I was in a family environment like that. I think the only people that really had a problem with that were the adults, because I don't remember being teased a lot by my foster siblings.
Well, okay. So it was mainly and how did the adults? What did the adults try to do to you when you were 8, 9, 10 years old? Did they try to break the femininity out of you, or what?
Yeah, I think that's what the military schools were pretty much designed to. We gotta take this queer kid and put him in a military academy and turn him into a little boy, and It didn't work.
It didn't work. Didn't
It
work.
didn't work.
Well, listen, Gregory, I'm going to take just a little break here for a little advertising spot for a second, and then I want to get back to talking about, especially about the part that you said with about this content warning, with one chapter containing a graphic depiction of homosexual assault and a few others briefly depict sex acts between boys. We've got to cover that. We've got to make the show. That's going to really give us ratings for the show.
We can talk about that on the radio?
Oh, of course we can. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Of course, this is radio. What else, Anyway, so we'll get to that in just a minute. Hey, I just want to let our listeners know, if you would like to reach out to our listening audience, and we have a very good-sized listening audience out here in the Western Inland Empire. They listen on 1050 AM at 103.5 FM, and then those listening on kcaradio.com could be anywhere across the United States and throughout the world. So if you would like to be one of our advertisers on our show and help sponsor our show and keep us on the air, think about it. The prices are very, very reasonable, and you have a chance to really reach a very eclectic audience of listeners. What you need to do is contact Mark Westwood. He is the advertising manager. You can reach him at 909-793-1065. That's 909-793-1065. Think about becoming an advertiser here and reaching our audience about whatever product you have to sell or ideas you want to put forth or whatever. Right here on Lanny Sense, the most eclectic show on KCA radio ever. I would think so. And, I didn't tell you anything about, you may be wondering, well, who is this Gregory Franklin? I failed to give you an introduction to him, so I think this would be as good a time as any to give you a little background on Gregory. Gregory is a native of Detroit, Michigan, and he has lived in Portland, Oregon since 1987. He is a longtime LGBTQ plus activist and activist. Along the way, he has enjoyed he's enjoyed a number of careers, including 3-time Juried Award-winning community television producer-director. He's a small-time, and I love that's his word, small-time singer-songwriter in the 80s, and most recently a social worker helping homeless men find and maintain stable housing. And most recently, an author. He's gay and a holdover from the hippie movement of the 70s. Since 2007, he has been writing in an apparently secret internet blog, spouting off on national and international politics. Today, he enjoys a quiet life in a trailer park with his cat, Miss Thing, where he's still trying to figure out whatever he wants to do with his life. That's an interesting thing that you're still trying to figure out what you're going to do when you grow up.
That was supposed to be a clever joke.
It is. It's a good joke. It's a good joke. So anyway, obviously I just talked about this content warning. Some other stuff kind of went on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I mean, as a gay kid, I was as curious about sex as anybody else was, but before I got into that kind of thing where I was volunteering to have sex with other boys, I was in this foster family. They were called the Schmitz, and there was a lot of physical, emotional, psychological, and sexual abuse that happened there. That was the bulk of the really bad stuff. And the sexual assault was that that my foster brother, this guy's name was Bob Logan, and he was about twice my age. I think I was like 8 or 9 and he was 16. Okay. And he was probably twice my size at the time too. Anyway, he made me jack him off every night. And there was this one time when things started escalating. I mean, when I first got there, everything was cool for about a week, and then it just started, amping up. There was a lot of physical abuse. I got beaten up quite regularly. Bob Logan would beat me up a lot. The mom, Mrs. Schmidt, I think her name was Mabel, she would beat me up a lot. Her thing was to grab me by my ears and dig her fingernails into the back of my ears and pick me up and shake me, that kind of thing. And anyway, the one time that I, in the book where I get really graphic about sexual assault, was there was this one time when Bob had a friend of his over to the house, and he was showing off. And he was explaining that I'm his sex slave and he can have sex whenever he wants to. And he basically force fed me his dick. And it was fucking terrifying. I mean, it really was. And I just like shut down, and it's spooky even thinking about it. But I mean that
yeah,
part,
if you don't want it, it's a horrifying experience. Absolutely.
yeah. And in this case, it was. I mean, as far as jacking him off every night, that, I got used to that pretty quick. I mean, it was nothing really,
Yeah.
But later on, when I started to, when I hit puberty, and I just started really being interested in other boys, and that's when some of the sex that I talk about in the book. There's really not very much of it, because the book isn't really about sex. It's a gay kid,
But there is there is a chapter of heightened interest, one might say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
if you're into abuse and shit like that, there's 2 whole chapters in there about that. So
did this make you withdraw away from people, or how did it affect you in your relationship with other people, especially at that young an age?
Well, first of all, I wasn't around very many people because we're out in rural Michigan, and I mean, I had to go to school and everything. So I think the teacher at school was probably the one that figured out how to get a hold of my case manager, because it was pretty obvious to her that there was some untoward things going on there. And this, it was over a year that I was there, probably like, there were 2 winters, so it'd be like a year and a half maybe. And I think she was the one that kind of was concerned about it, because I would always come to school and there'd be like bruises and little cuts and scrapes and stuff like that from the beatings. Now, ordinarily, in a rural situation when you're on a farm and you're doing work, a kid having little bumps and scrapes and bruises here and there, it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's part of the hard farming is hard work. Sometimes you get hurt. But I mean, this was so consistent, and she knew that the Schmidt farm was not an active farm. The only thing that they had going on was a pear orchard and a apple orchard, and we would do that, once a year. So I don't really know what I was doing there, but part of it was that they were opening a pool hall, and Bob Logan was going to be labor in the pool hall, but I was too young because they served beer, so I was in an upper room the whole time. And there was a bunch of abuse that took place up there too.
So when did you wind up in military schools?
The first grade, I went to Hall of the Divine Child in Monroe, Michigan. It's now a condo. The building
it was called Hall of the Divine Child. Was this a military school run by the Catholic Church?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
And what was that like?
Well, it's basically. Are you familiar with ROTC?
Sure.
It's ROTC day and night, basically. You're a military cadet all the time. You have to dress in a uniform with a tie and all that kind of stuff.
And you were in the
then
first
the next
grade.
one I went to was St. Francis, and that's right after I got rescued from the Schmitz. I went to St. Francis, and that was another military academy. Now, I consider Boys Town to be a military academy, even though it's technically not, but a lot of how life happens in a military academy, a live-in military academy, was also true at Boys Town.
Do you think what you went through was fairly common for a lot of young boys who were also orphaned? Like, I mean, was you unique, or you think it was more widespread than just you?
Oh, I think it was very widespread. I don't think mine is a unique story. I really don't. It's possible that the sexual abuse type stuff might have been different in my case. But no, this was real common at the time.
Wow. And
when I would end up in St. Francis, I was like shoulder to shoulder with all different kind of kids who were also in the system. And I would hear stories, and I had it better than some, and not as good as others. So I mean, I was kind of like in the middle of how bad things could get.
And yet, from this, you wrote that it led to self-realization and ultimately self-acceptance. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean the thing that was most difficult for me in coming out and really settling with myself as being gay, that didn't really happen until I was in my late 20s. But I was starting to, I guess you'd call it clandestine. I knew that I was attracted to boys, and I actually had sex with some boys when I was in high school, every once in a while. And after graduating from school, I don't think I had sex with anybody for like 6 years while I was still working this stuff out in my head. Catholicism, it's where I come from. Okay. How Catholicism was presented to me is that when I got to the point where I was able to, cognitively think things and remember stuff, I was already a Catholic at that point. There was, I didn't question it because I thought this is what it's like for everybody. I swear to God, Lanny, I didn't even know that there were religions other than Catholicism until I went to high school.
Wow. Okay.
That's how tight it was.
And so, but the self-acceptance actually came
Much
relatively
later.
late in life, after you went through your teenage years.
Yeah. Yeah, it was right around the time. I mean, I was basically clandestinely gay. Okay, I knew what I was feeling, but I was struggling with it because I knew that my parents, the Catholic Church, were not into this. This was not okay. And one thing that happened back then, and it's starting to come to full circle now, is that whenever kids in any of these Catholic schools that I went to exhibited a feminine character, or where priests or nuns thought that they might be gay, they would be guided into the clergy, to be a nun, or, a brother or a priest. And depending upon how deep you are into the whole Catholicism thing, that is what you would do. Okay. And I was definitely one of those. I was being groomed for the priesthood. And what's happening now is that all those kids that actually did go through with it to enter the clergy, and I think that the rationale was, if you become a member of the clergy, you have to denounce sex. You can't have sex. You have to be celibate for the rest of your life. Blah blah shoo, right?
Yes.
And I think that the thinking was that if you can dispense with the whole subject of sex in a person, then you don't have to worry about this homosexual thing. It's out of the picture because these people aren't allowed to have sex anyway. So that's how they were dealing with it. So now what you have is you have a bunch of gay priests and brothers who are in the Catholic Church now, and they are suppressing a natural thing that happens in every human being. And when you do that, it's going to come out in some weird ways, and that's why you have so many pedophiles in the Catholic Church.
Oh,
They set that up. Yeah.
Well, I often it was interesting what you said. A lot of gay men joined the Catholic Church because, in a sense, that would kind of be, it's all men. It's kind of an ideal situation for a man who wants to be with other men.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it was designed that way. I mean, if they intentionally designed something to do that, that's what they came up with.
Well, in a sense, I was kind of lucky because most of the places that I lived in growing up during my formative years was in all male societies.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Did you ever see the film Spotlight?
Yes, I did.
And did that film have any kind of resonance with you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I recognized a lot of it, and I was saying, it's really kind of heartbreaking that it took that long for that to come out, and that was like the early 2000s, like 2009, 10, something like that.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Oh yeah, and it won the Best Picture of the Year award. It's a marvelous picture. Listeners, if you have not seen the movie Spotlight, see it. I don't know if it's on Netflix or where, but it's an incredible story. But really the film Spotlight wasn't so much about sexual abuse of minors. It was about it was no more about the sexual abuse of minors than Watergate was about a poorly done break-in at this apartment building. It was about the cover-up. It was
Exactly.
Nixon
You
covered
get it,
up the
Lenny. You get it.
Watergate,
Yeah.
and the Catholic Church covered up what's been going on. I mean, sexual abuse of minors has probably been going on in the Catholic Church for a millennia, and but it was the cover up that was the essence of Spotlight, and it was an amazing story. If you haven't seen the movie, you need to see it. So, what would you? Are things better now, or is the same kind of thing still going on as far as you know?
I would say things are better now. I don't really know because I know very few people that came up through the same system that I did now. I mean, when I was going through it, I was around them all the time, you know. And what I can say is that for that time, you know, this is like the 50s and the 60s. I was born in 52, and I graduated from high school in 1970. So it was mainly the 50s and 60s when I was coming up. And at that time, my story, it was pretty common, except for maybe the intensity of the abuse. It was a pretty common story. I mean, I had it better than some and not as good as others, but I think I was somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, yeah, but it could very well be. And the thing, this story that you're telling is obviously very personal and very informative. I think people who did not grow up as an orphan, and most people did not grow up as an orphan, don't understand what it's like and the experiences that you had and how you get, some orphans actually do get into a family and they stay in that family all through their childhood. But a lot of them we don't seem to realize, just get bounced from one family to another family to another family to another family and don't really know stability anytime during their youth.
Well, the kind of things that happens to kids that are in that system is that they're being traumatized. Okay, they're torn away from their family for whatever reason. Okay, and that really does have an impact on you. For my entire story, there's this undercurrent of the fact that I was always, wanting to get back to my family, and not realizing while all this was happening that the family was gone. Okay, it had exploded, and all four of us went our separate ways. Mom, dad, my brother, and I all went our separate ways. And so that I was carrying that through this whole thing with it, and it wasn't until I guess when I was about 28, a lot of things happened to me. Like it was, I don't know, kind of like a vision quest. You know what that is, right?
You tell us what a vision quest is.
Native American
Yes.
Tradition, vision quest. You kind of separate yourself and just really get down to shaking yourself down to the roots and say, who am I and what am I doing with this life? And that happened to me right around the time that I was 28. And what I did at that time is I really did do some serious work about forgiving my adopted family, the Schroeders, who I always thought of as being my family, forgave them for giving me up. Okay. And that lifted a lot for me. I mean, that really washed out a bunch of crap, And it was also at that time that I made the decision that I just could not go on like this, pretending that I wasn't gay, because I was living a lie. And I just wasn't willing to continue to do that. And I just broke down and said, okay, if this is what I'm saddled with, then this is what I'm going to use. And since I actually did that vision quest and came out of it knowing who I was, I never looked back. There was never a reason to.
So you went through this rather traumatic childhood, but eventually, it's like you said, you came to self-realization and ultimately self-acceptance.
It was hard to do because of the Catholic training and indoctrination, because this whole time, the reason why I felt tortured about being gay was because my parents taught me that that's not okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. So do you still consider yourself a Catholic?
Yeah, and the reason is because it's where I come from. I mean, my formative years were developed in that space. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't go to church or mass or anything like that. I haven't for in my entire adult life. I have been to churches before. I was involved with MCC Portland here for years when I first got here. But church, it's just not the thing. I think it's kind of a I'm spiritual,
I
but the one thing that I'm okay with is that I know that being who I am, being gay, there is nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly natural for me. For other people, maybe not. That's none of my business.
Well, but no, being gay is perfectly natural. It's only been around
It is.
for 250,000 years in humans. So to say that it's not natural is absurd. What isn't natural is saying that it isn't natural, because it is natural. It's rampant in mammals and primates especially, and that's what we are. We're mammals and we're primates. So to sit there and deny the fact that there is a sexual attraction in us to our own, members of our own sex, for a significant number of us, is absurd. And it's denying the natural. To deny it is what is unnatural. But and it kind of shows that what you went through, that you had to didn't get out over it until 28, is what's in a sense sad. I am sometimes bitter about the fact that I knew I was gay when I was like 13, 14 years old, and I knew I wanted guys, and I knew I grew up in Los Angeles. I knew I could go up to Hollywood Boulevard and meet them, but I never had the courage to do so. I could have jumped on a bus, I could have gotten up there, but I never had the courage to do so. And I'm bitter because I lost out on having sex during my teenage years, and I'll never get that back. What a loss.
I think one of the things that I think is powerful about this book, and I hope that people who are under 18 read it, despite the fact that they can't order it on Amazon because of the sex parts. But I think that there's a lot of people out there who are in that same situation that you were in and that I were in, that we could shorten that torture for them to some degree, and this book would probably help to do that.
It certainly would. But, times are different now because of the internet. And if when I was 12 and 13 and 14 and 15 years old, if I would have had access to the internet and the information that is on the internet, I probably would have come out years earlier. But I didn't have any kind of information like that. I was ignorant, one might say. And nowadays, because of the internet, young kids are not ignorant anymore, and they can explore that side and meet people and all this kind of stuff. So
this is an important reason why we are still running Night Scene on cable access here in Portland. And I have gotten copies of all of the night scenes that survived the years. Now the Oregon Historical Society has it. Now the Gay and Lesbian Archives of the Pacific Northwest have it. There is a national museum, I think, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, who has a copy of it. And eventually these things are going to be available to everybody. And this is going to be really important for those kids out in rural America who don't have any exposure to this, to be able to see this so that they can know that, number one, they're not alone, and number two, there's nothing wrong with them.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, we're running out of time. If people want to secure your book, how can they do so?
glfranklin.com. Here's a picture of it. Well, yeah, I got one right here. This is it right here.
Okay.
Anyway, this company, I think they're in India or something, built me a website. It's beautiful. You got to see it.
Okay.
And also, I just wanted to plug that I have a YouTube channel, which is mainly the political type stuff that I've been involved with. It's called The View from Out Here. And I'm at episode 12 now. I'm just going to keep going until somebody tells me I have to stop.
So you go to the YouTube and you put in The View from Out Here. And
The View from Out Here, yes.
All right. And they can go to Kindle.com to order your book.
Yeah, it's there. It's kind of hard to
so
find.
Your book is available in copy as well as electronically.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And they go to Kindle, and what do they type in to get your book?
You hit go to Amazon and then hit books in the banner across the top of the thing, and then just type in G.L. Franklin, and it'll bring up both of my
And
books.
that's Franklin spelled Franklyn, not I-N.
Correct.
So it's Y-N. Very good. Well, Gregory, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your life experiences here with us. It's eye-opening. It's heartwarming. It's wonderful to hear. I mean, you went through some tough times, but it shows that how you can come out of things and be and lead a wonderful life. So, thank you for joining us.
Really good talking with you again, Lanny, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Take care. We'll see you this year up in Portland. I'll be coming. Victor and I will come up and see you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Gregory Franklin, author of the new book, Searching for Saint Germain, The True Story of a Gay Catholic Orphan. You can get it on, go to Kindle.com or Amazon.com and just put in his name, G.L. Franklin, Franklyn, and you can order a copy of the book, or you can read it electronically on your Fire tablet or any tablet or on your computer or whatever. Okay, well, we're running slow. Next week, we're going to be having one of our old shows on, and it's a show featuring Dr. Donald Prothero. He is taught college geology and paleontology for 35 years at Caltech, Columbia, Occidental, Knox, Vassar, Glendale, Mount San Antonio, and Pierce colleges. He is the author of over 40 books and over 300 scientific papers, mostly on the evolution of fossil mammals, especially rhinos, camels, and horses, if you are into those animals in particular. And he also is an expert on using the Earth's magnetic field changes to date fossil-bearing strata, so we know just how old these bones are when we find them. For those people who sit there and say the Earth is only 6,000 years old, Dr. Prothero shows that's nonsense. He has received numerous awards, including in 2016 the Friend of Darwin Award from the National Center for Science Education. He has been featured on numerous TV documentaries, including Paleo World, Walking with Dinosaurs, Prehistoric Beast, Prehistoric Monsters Revealed, Monster Quest, Prehistoric Predators, Entomolon and Hyenodon, Conspiracy Road, Creationism, as well as Jeopardy and Win Ben Stein's Money. Tracing the history of science, he will be on our show. He'll be tracing the history of science from the beginnings of the scientific method. He will be exploring science denialism from the flat earthers to the anti-vaccine conspiracy theories of today, and the dangers that the anti-science folks pose for the mental and physical health of our species, denying climate change and all this kind of stuff. So thank you so much for joining us here on Lanny Sense every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Remember, if you'd like to advertise on our show, contact our advertising director, Mark Westwood, at 909-793-1065. We would love to have you helping to support the show. Until next week, this is Lanny Swirtle saying thank you for listening to Lanny Sense, the show that leaves no one behind on the station that leaves no listener behind.